Hello, my name is Hakon and welcome back to my channel where today I'm going to say a few words about typewriters again. Now you may see that I have a little typewriter in front of me here, or rather a rather big typewriter I should say, or huge is perhaps even a word that suits better. This is one behemoth of a typewriter. It is a Torpedo Dynacord S full-size standard office machine typewriter from 1965. A little bit of a backstory. So I may have mentioned in a few of my videos that I have 26 typewriters in my collection. I may even have mentioned that whether it was on YouTube or on Facebook, I'm sure I've mentioned that I'm not planning to buy any more right away. Because I'm quite happy with my collection of 26, and although it turns out that I had 27, I did go and check. Um, I wasn't planning to buy any more. It's been more than a year since last time I bought one. But the other day I made a video about the Hermes Baby and the Empire Aristocrat typewriters. So if you remember, that is the tiny portable travel typewriters favored by reporters and journalists on the go. Tiny little thing, certainly next to this behemoth. And when I did make that video, or just before I made that video, I should say, I went on eBay just to have a little look and see, just to see what kind of prices these typewriters were being sold for these days, just as a point of reference and in case I felt like mentioning it in my video, which of course is unscripted, like most of my videos, well, 99.9% of my videos. So the thing is, once you look on eBay and you look for one thing, you may find something else. So when I started looking at the typewriters, I saw this one, and this was something that I immediately loved the look of. This is an absolutely beautiful typewriter in wonderful colors, shades of blue here, blue and gray, and there's two other grays as well. It's, yeah, a little bit of sort of a greenish color here as well. It looks beautiful, it looks solid, it looks serious. It's a beautiful typewriter, and the price was right. It had a starting auction price of £10, roughly £10. Might have been 12 actually. I think it was £12. Somebody had put in a bid of £12. I bid £20, and I bought it for £14. So nobody else bid but the first bidder and me. And the first bidder only bought the minimum bid, nothing else. So £14 for this absolute solid monster of a typewriter. Now, you may think that sounds really cheap, but consider the fact that this is an office, full-size office machine standard. Well, technically that should mean that it would be worth more, or certainly would have cost more originally, than a smaller, less solid portable. But there are a few things that happen at the same time here. First of all, people who collect typewriters, they are more keen to collect portables because they've got room for them. If you have a portable typewriter, you can tuck it away, you can bring it out when you need it, you can type when you like, and you can tuck it away again. It's easy, yeah, and you can have room for more of them if you like collecting. That's one thing. Another thing is there are more portables on the market as well. Consider this. Big full-size office machines is something that people wouldn't have had at home. This would have been used in offices. It would have been something that would have been amortized over 5 years perhaps. So you have a machine like this, it's used all day, every day for 5 years, and then you do some kind of part exchange, or the suppliers, they would often have some kind of deal where you bring back your old typewriter and you get a new one. And they would either refurbish the old ones and sell them more cheaply, or they would just throw them away, or they would turn them into scrap, things like that. So a lot of the old office machines that used to exist, they have actually turned into scrap or landfill. Yeah, it's quite a hard it's quite a hard truth to be faced with when you think about it if you love typewriters, but that is what happened. So there aren't that many big ones, and they don't tend to sell for very much money because they are big, heavy. You need a space for it. And they are prohibitively expensive to send as well, to ship. Very often the price of shipping for a big typewriter like this might be the same that people actually want to budget for purchasing a typewriter. So very often you see these for sale, well, not this particular brand, but generally a standard office machine typewriter, and it's local pickup only, which limits your market and also keeps the price down. So generally speaking, the prices for the big office machines are lower than for the portables, and the more expensive machines you get on places like eBay are often the ultra portables, the Groma Colibri, for instance, the Olympia Splendid, things like that. So the very popular, very small machines, the Hermes Baby, of course, as well. All those fetch bigger money than a big standard office machine like this. Right, so let's talk a little bit about the machine now, because I made the choice of buying this. This is my second standard. I got another one as well. I'm going to talk about one day. This is by far my favorite, and I'll give you a little overview of the different features it has. It's a really nifty machine indeed. So here we are a little bit closer now. I have to stand up now, and I'm trying to move my camera by hand. So as you can see, there's the badge there. It says Torpedo. Torpedo, of course, in German, obviously. Now, the thing is, famously, this brand was marketed in the UK as Bluebird. And the reason is, of course, that the history of Germany, Britain, and torpedoes is one that may have brought back some bad memories for the British, and may have brought back some feeling of shame, perhaps, from the Germans. Because torpedoes is something people would think of together with U-boats and a few world wars quite recent at the time. It wouldn't have been good memories. So Bluebird is like the opposite of torpedo, of course. Bluebird's over the White Cliffs of Dover and all that. So that is what it was marketed as in the UK. If I move up here, you can see it is a Dynacord S. Now, Dynacord is the name of the overall model, but the S means that this particular one has number tabs. So if you have a look here, you see it says 1, 10, 100, 1000, 10,000, 100,000, and 1 million. And that means this particular machine was especially suited to bookkeeping and accounts. There are two different models. There's one with normal tabs. On the normal tabs one, you can set a certain number of manual tabs. On this one, you can set the 0 point, I believe, for the numbers. And the others are fixed relative to that. Margin setting is something you can do over here as well. So basically what you do, you move, instead of doing what you do in a portable, which is to move manually a sort of a tab at the back of the carriage. On this one, the tab is on the inside of the carriage, and you press down these two keys when you're at the margin, and you can move the carriage to the new position, release, and that's your new margin position. So it's exactly the same mechanism on the carriage, except you don't move it manually. You use the keys to access that feature. Oh. There we are. Okay. Seems maybe I have to push this margin, this release button here as well to engage it properly. So now I'll move the margin there. I'll just see if I can move it again. So I'll do like this. And then find the other margin is over here. Let's move that over there. There it is. So it's quite easy to set the margins. Once you know how, I was actually struggling a little bit because it took me a little while before I figured out how to do that. So you have to go to the margin, hold these down, move it to the new position, and release. Very nice indeed. Over here on the left we have the ribbon selector. So we got red, off and black. I usually like just using a single color black ribbon for my typewriters, so I could use either of these for black. Of course, stencil mode when you switch it off completely. A little look at the Carriage return arm here. Quite nice. I'll just move the angle a little bit there. Nice, good shape, that sort of spoon shape return arm, very comfortable. And if we move over here, we can see the line spacing selector, which moves from 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3. So it goes up to triple line spacing, which is quite common for this kind of machine, but not for the portables that I'm sure most people are more familiar with. Carriage rotating knob, of course. But also we have back here a release knob which releases the ratchet mechanism and you can move it freely. Very useful. I'm not sure exactly what this one does. It's got some kind of spring mechanism attached to it. I'll have to look that up. We got our paper rest here with numbers on them, so you can actually plan a little bit ahead on the number of lines sometimes. Nice solid mechanism, nice paper guide rollers here. Nice measuring numbers, and also on the plastic here you can see they have these little marks, so you can easily see where you are relative to the line you're working on. Over on the right here we have our Carriage release, and not Carriage release really, it's platen release is what I was looking for, and also we have a paper feed mechanism. So you pull this lever and it pulls in, if you see the platen here, you can see it moving. It pulls in the paper and you can select the number of lines you want it to pull in here. So there's this little thing here and you can set the number of lines you want it to pull into the machine. Next to it there's another number, and that is an adjustment for platen gap. So if you want to have more paper in with loss of carbon paper, you can actually adjust that with the small knob at the back here. Right, I'll just sit down a little bit now so I can move down to the front. So here is the hood, so to speak. Under the hood we have a noise dampening felt material on the inside. We have a very nice segment here. Let's move the light down a bit so we can actually see under here, so you can see the felt there. And this one also came with one vintage metal ribbon spool, which I really like, by the way, because these days you only get the plastic ones, well, most of the time. So sometimes when you buy typewriters you get original metal spools, which are quite collectible actually, and I quite like those. There is a touch selector, so it adjusts how hard you have to push the keys. Like on many typewriters, this doesn't seem to have a lot of an effect. I'm wondering if there's a spring mechanism or something that isn't quite right, or whether it actually is only meant to be a small adjustment. Now, rather uniquely, here is a lever, and on the opposite side there is also the same kind of lever, and this allows you to just lift off the carriage. I'll actually show you that afterwards, like so, which is really cool, and I've never seen that on a typewriter before. So here you can see the mechanism underneath. You can actually see the part of the system for setting the tabs. Here you can see the drawband, and very clever. This makes it easier to service, of course, and to adjust. And you can also see here the, oops, I'll just put that aside for a moment. You can see here, this is the tabs, the decimal tabs here, the escapement here, and of course these are the pins that adjust for adjusting the tabs coming up here. Very nice mechanism. Looks very clean as well, by the way. Looks very nice. So that's also quite easy to remove here. So it's extremely easy to service this machine compared to many portable typewriters. Let's see if I can get this back where it belongs now. Let's see, so it's there. And it just clicks back into place. And I just have to put the levers back, and now it is in place. There we are. Quite a cool little feature, I think. Very nice padding here for the segment, and this is our ribbon direction change mechanism. Ribbons are a little bit on the loose side. I'm not sure if there's some spring that should be a little bit tighter, but that's no matter. Keyboard layout, of course, this is a German keyboard, so we got Quetz with a Z where you're used to seeing the Y, and of course we got the Y down here, and the Y isn't used much in German, and also not in Eastern European languages, and so the Z is the one that has a more prominent position on those keyboards. And we got the German letters Ö, E, and Ü, and also the SZ as well. The one that looks a bit like a B. Just focus a bit better on that. There we are. So that is the SZ character, which is a double S, really. Over here we have a feature that I haven't seen on any typewriters before, but this wasn't uncommon on big office machines. So on the bottom position there, that is a normal spacing between letters. If you push the top one, you get double spacing between letters. So that's great for headlines, for instance. So it skips an extra space from one letter to the next. Right, I think I've showed you most of the things on here, so maybe I'll show you some typing. So I'm going to put the camera down for a moment, and I'm going to get some paper. Right, so now I've got some paper in here, and I got 2 sheets of 120-gram paper, and I'll just see what happens now. So I've got this lever here, and I've set it to 13 lines. I'm going to pull that in, and oh, this seems to get stuck there actually. Okay, so 2 sheets of paper that are a bit stiff is not ideal for this mechanism. Now I noticed lots of typewriters, they don't handle, I mean they handle lots of sheets of paper, but they don't handle thick paper that well. So this one is alright once it's in, but the feeding mechanism doesn't like the thickness because it's a bit stiff. I think that's the issue. So now it's double spacing between letters, remember? So we got, let's make sure I'm focused on that. So there we are. So that's what it looks like. That's the double letter spacing. And then we got I'll just focus down there again, and we got the German letters Ö, A, Ü, and we've got the SZ, we got accent marks on dead keys, we got the acute and the grave, and if we put them both together, we've got a circumflex, which is quite a common thing to have when you. So these are actually, that is actually deliberate. Then these accents are placed in a way to make sure that what you get when you put them both together is a circumflex. On some typewriters, it makes a heart check, usually on the ones that already have a circumflex character on them. But of course, some languages they use a heart check but not a circumflex, and vice versa. But that all depends. It varies simply. What else is there to show you now? I think I've sort of shown you the main features of this typewriter. So this is a brilliant machine, I would say. The accent marks in particular, and of course I suppose that also means punctuation, does have a tendency to punch through, and of course now we've got double sheets which acts as padding, and that prevents that from happening. Oh yeah, one more thing. Numerals. I usually talk about numerals. So this one has numeral 1, which is not a given, but I suppose for an office machine this would be extremely unusual not to have. But on portables it was often omitted. It's also got numeral 0, which, just to compare now, does look identical to uppercase O, but the thing is that when you're typing numbers all the time, you don't want to be using uppercase O. You want all the numerals on the keyboard, which is why you get them on this machine. And this is indeed, of course, because of the decimal tabs. This is meant for typing numbers. That's one of the main reasons for it. So, and of course the numeral 1 looks a lot nicer than the lowercase, let's see, is that the right place now? Lowercase L, of course, which is what you get on some typewriters as your number 1 substitute. This one does not have half spacing. That's a feature I often talk about, which is the feature where when you press down the space bar, the carriage advances half a space exactly, and when you release it, it moves the other half, which is a feature that's absolutely amazing for aligning text, for instance, for center adjustment, things like that. I'm going to talk more about that when I get to a typewriter that has it. I have mentioned it before in my Olympia Traveler Deluxe video, of course, which does have that feature and it works really well on it. Right, is there anything more I wanted to say? Well, this being a German typewriter, of course, it also has paragraph mark, which I don't use very often, but I suppose if you're writing legal things, that's useful. And otherwise it has a nice and, let's see, nice and symbol as well. Not as clear as I wanted it there because I'm just using, there we are, that's a bit better. It's a little bit hard to do it with one hand and sort of moving across under the camera there. But just the fact that you can type with one hand with shift comfortably on a typewriter means that the typing action is very good and comfortable. So yeah, I'm quite liking this typewriter. It's it's also got a proper 2-line dollar sign and also a pound sign as well. Very nice, and of course useful if you're using this for business accounts, etc. You don't usually get any sort of Deutschmark symbols on typewriters. I presume they would just type DM. Presumably they would just type DM if they needed to. So I haven't seen that any. Usually often you get the currency symbols on typewriters. For instance, for the Dutch ones, you get the FL, which is for florin, which is the symbol for guilder, actually, bizarrely. I've seen RM on Malaysian typewriters, so that's for ringgit. And of course, the older German typewriters, you had just the M, stylized M symbol, which is a Reichsmark, which was the one before the Deutschmark. Right, so there you have it. That is the Torpedo Dynacord S typewriter. I hope you enjoyed watching that. And I'm quite impressed with this typewriter. I think it was an absolute steal at £14. And I just love this thing. I think it's and it's a beautiful typewriter as well. If you enjoyed watching this, please like, share, comment, subscribe, join me on Patreon, all those things if you want to support my channel. And I'll see you next time with more videos about typewriters or something else. You never know. Goodbye for now. Bye bye.